I've mentioned canonical criticism a time or two, and I wanted to give a little more detail on what that means to talk a little bit about the canon and how do you look at the text as canon. There are really two ways of talking about canonical criticism. The first was a kind that sort of followed in the vein of a guy named James Sanders. Sanders was very concerned with the shaping of the Psalter. In other words, how it came to be over time, how it was edited by the community, when the different books were put together, etc. The maybe purposed editorial choices that were made in putting certain psalms in certain places. That's the kind of canonical approach that Gerald Wilson had in his book, The Editing of the Hebrew Psalter. He was focusing on what he called the seams of the book, so that 41, 42, 72, 73, 89, 90, 106, 107 area. And believing that at those ends of those books, that would be the place where you would perhaps see the most possibility for editorial shaping, and showed some interesting correspondence to other Mesopotamian hymn texts around. Nancy DeClassey Walford followed along in Gerald's sort of line of thinking. Her book was focusing on reading from the beginning. So she was still looking at the seams of the book, but was looking at them from the perspective of the beginning. So 1 and 2 and 42, 43, 73, 90, 107, etc., looking at the beginnings of those individual books. But again, how they came to be, how they would have been edited together by a community, how they would have been, how the book itself would have been shaped by the community. Brevard Childs had another kind of canonical shaping. His was more concerned with the shape of the Psalter. In other words, the received canonical shape of the Psalter. So where Sanders and those who follow Sanders are interested in how the text came together, Childs is asking questions more about, well, this is what we have. So what do we know about what we have currently and how that comes together? Basically, Wilson and DeClassey Walford, and actually my work as well, sort of following along in that type of thinking. I'm sort of straddling the fence, both Childs and Sanders in some ways. But they felt that books 1 and 2 of the Psalter emphasized Davidic monarchy, so perhaps came together during that time of Davidic monarchy where they're promoting David as king. Book 3 was going to drive home that reality of exile. A lot of exilic psalms in here, temple being destroyed, David's reign coming to an end, how's that going to work, etc. Book 4 is that return from exile, that move away from David as king to Yahweh as king, and then Wilson felt that Book 5 showed a renewed focus of Yahweh's kingship, and we've sort of moved away from David's kingship. And there are different things that Wilson would point out. Psalm 72 is a superscription of Solomon. He felt that at the end of that book emphasized the continuation of the Davidic promise. Psalm 89 in Book 3 questions how Davidic monarchy can be gone when it's supposed to be an eternal thing. Why is an eternal thing eternal? Book 4, the beginning of it, Psalm 90, Wilson and DeClassey Walford and myself all have felt that prayer of Moses, man of God, moves the focus back towards Sinaitic covenant and away from Davidic covenant. And then Book 5 closes with this 5-psalm doxology to Yahweh. But that is one way of looking at the text and how it was shaped, and perhaps how that shaping actually mirrors Israel's struggle as we're looking at that in history.